Right, everybody just calm down.
Calm the hell
I've
down.
sorted it. I've just realised I haven't put any makeup on.
Oh, don't
Oh,
worry about that.
good Lord.
My dental issues continue. The first time I had this side swollen, got that dealt with. Then I had this side swollen, got that dealt with. Now I've gone back to this side swollen. So I'm over it.
Riddled.
Yeah, absolutely
Riddled.
riddled with it.
Oh dear.
Never
What
mind.
you have cut it down to the wire
I have.
today
I have.
because we are recording Monday afternoon and the episode comes out in a few hours.
Yeah. So there.
That's how we roll. Fuck
That's how
it.
we roll. Yeah.
I can't
Now I'm
wait.
having a hot flush to add to it all.
Oh no.
Right.
Just end it. It's enough.
Yeah, that's it. I'm done. Oh, well.
Oh, well, I am really excited actually. We've got some shout outs to do. We've had such lovely feedback recently from everybody, and I can't even express to you how amazing it is when somebody gets in touch and says, "Oh, I've just come across your podcast and
I know it's
it's really
great, isn't
good."
it?
So yeah, we're going to give a shout out to Chris.
Chris.
It's going to be a while before he listens to this because he messaged and he said, I really love Jack the Ripper, so I thought I'd listen to your 4-part podcast on it. And then he said, oh, I loved it, and then I really enjoyed listening to you too, so I went back to the first episode. I was like, oh no,
No,
don't do that.
don't do it, Chris.
But yeah, so he's steadily making his way through, so thank you for getting in touch, Chris. We love you.
Thanks, Chris. And your message was so, so lovely as well. So lovely. It really, we really needed it.
And another shout out to Lisa.
Lisa,
who got in touch with Kate and said how much she enjoys the episodes and also the random blams.
yes.
And
I'm glad she said that because we've really been in a quandary about whether or not to keep doing the random blams, whether people got anything out of it or whether it was just annoying.
Yeah.
But yeah, feedback is it's a win.
People love the random blams. So do you know what? Random blams, go!
Shit.
Can I do mine first? Because mine's really good and I really love mine.
All right. Well, mine's really good as well.
Well, go on then.
No, fine. Go. You go.
Save the best to last. So I've mentioned this book before. It's Adam Kay's Marvelous Medicines. It is a children's book and it is just fantastic. And it's full of amazing things that you I don't know. I didn't know. Nobody knows.
Just amazing shit. Yeah.
It's just full of amazing shit. It's about medicine and the advancements of medicine and practices that used to happen that are outdated and things like that. So here goes. The incubator was invented in France in 1880 based on a machine that kept baby chicks warm. An American doctor called Martin Cooney was visiting France and saw how well they worked, so told his hospital all about them and how they massively increased the chance that a premature baby would survive. Unfortunately, his hospital wasn't interested. They said that premature babies were weaklings who weren't supposed to live, and they wouldn't buy any incubators.
Oh.
So what happened was when a premature baby was born, he would care for it in an incubator, but not in the hospital. In a theme park, he borrowed a lot of money and he bought a lot of different incubators, and then he set up his incubators for these premature babies in a theme park. And his idea was that after people had been on the roller coasters and before they went off to buy candy floss, they might fancy paying 25 cents to go into his infantorium to see some tiny babies, and the entrance fee would help him pay back the money he'd borrowed. And then it says it was a huge success and people flocked to spend their money and see these magical little babies. And by doing this, Cooney saved the lives of over 6,000 babies.
Jesus.
Oh, no.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so that it was like
good for him.
Circus act, these incubators. They'll see these tiny little miraculous babies. And then obviously now hospitals have incubators.
Yeah. That's amazing. Good
I
job,
know.
Martin. Good job. Well, mine's slightly different, but my random blam came from our newest subscriber, Lisa. She said that one of the things that she always tells people is about pirates with their eye patches. And she said that a lot of people think that pirates wore eye patches because they only had one eye. And that's not actually true. The reason that pirates wear eye patches is so that when they're out on the deck of the boat and it's bright sunshine, all the rest of it, and they've got their eye patch on, when they go down into the like bows of the boat, they swap their eye patch over so that that eye acclimatizes to the light levels and they can actually see like in under the deck of the boat. And then they do the same when they go back out. They just switch it back over and they're not blinded by the light when they go up onto the deck.
So clever.
Yeah, it's a genuine reason. It's not that pirates had one eye.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Who
I thought
knew?
that was really interesting. I know. Well, Lisa knew.
Lisa knew.
Lisa knew, and she shared it with us. And she said, I found it really interesting, and it's something that I always tell people because I just find it fascinating. And I thought, I got you, Lisa.
Yeah. We'll spread the word.
We'll spread the word. But yeah, so if anyone wants to know anything about eye patches and pirates, Lisa is the one to go to. Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa.
All right, random blam.
Blams. Done. I am excited for your episode because I don't know what it is.
I don't know why, but we've suddenly gone into like an animal theme. We had the brilliant episode, Criminal Pigs, last week, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And it just got me thinking. I thought, do you know what? There's always been a story that I heard years ago and it's just stayed with me. And I thought, do you know what? Now's the time. Now is the time. So now is the time. And this episode is called Mad Monkeys.
Oh.
Yes. So it is stories about, you know, you asked me about monkeys and I said, I'm terrified of monkeys. And you were like,
why?
I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Well, this episode is why.
Right. Okay. So we're all going to be terrified of monkeys now.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Kate.
Welcome. Morning.
Morning.
Oh, she's got a face full of cake, for the love of God.
When you said, are you ready? I was like, yeah, I'm ready. I forgot that we do morning and that I was going to have to speak. Yeah,
so what she actually meant was, I'm ready for you to say morning.
I'm ready for you to start, but I've got a mouthful of cake.
I'm going to just stuff my face.
Yeah. It's not my story, so I can stuff away.
Yeah, that's true. You can. Not that that stops you, even when it's your story, to be fair. But well, stuff away. Stuff away. Sarah's stuffing for two this morning as well, in the fact that
I'm not pregnant, Kate.
I can't eat anything. So she's vicariously stuffing for me.
Listen, I always eat for two.
Yeah. Sometimes more.
Sometimes more. I eat for two on a good day.
Sometimes a whole group of people.
Uh-huh.
Well, this episode comes with a trigger warning. There is some graphic descriptions of mutilation as the result of animal attacks. If that is something that, I'm not going to go into it in massive detail, but I will describe what had happened.
Might be a bit scusties.
Yes, but a little bit scusty. So if it's not your thing, then feel free to gag while you listen, because I want you to listen. I was going to say, feel free to skip this episode, but don't. No. Listen. So it's about monkeys today.
Do love monkeys.
Why I am scared of monkeys. So I've got a couple of stories by different people that I'm going to read out, and then I'm going to tell you the story that is, and it's the last one, and it will be the whole reason that I am so scared of monkeys was because of this incident. So I'm going to start off with a tragic incident that unfolded when an American animal lover was savagely attacked by two chimpanzees whilst delivering a birthday cake to his former pet chimp of 30 years. St. James Davis, 62, was left in critical condition after sustaining severe injuries to his face and body during a visit with his wife to see their old friend, Mo.
I'll stop you there. Was his name St. James, or is the ST stand for like sergeant or something?
I don't know. I don't know. Honestly, it just everywhere it just said ST full stop James Davis.
I think that might be sergeant, maybe.
All right, Sergeant
Just
James Davis.
Let's upgrade him.
Let's upgrade him to Sarge. All right. So him and his wife, anyway, they went to see Mo, who was a chimpanzee, and he was at Animal Haven Ranch near Bakersfield in California. Two male chimpanzees that were in a cage adjacent to Mo's somehow escaped from their cage and launched a brutal assault on Mr. Davis, Sarge. The two male chimpanzees inflicted substantial injuries to Mr. Davis's face, abdomen, and upper body, and it was described as an extremely bloody attack. Mr. Davies was rushed to a hospital where he underwent extensive surgeries, including reconstructive procedures to repair parts of his face that were torn off during the attack. His injuries also included severe trauma to his foot and testicles. Chimps do seem to target, like
they go for the face as well. They always rip a face off.
Always go for the face. It's like a real like target.
Yeah.
For them, they just seem to go for that. They go for hands, feet, face, and anything that sticks out. So yeah, so unfortunately Sarge's testicles were obliterated. His wife, Donna Davis, who was 64, sustained serious injuries to her hands whilst trying to intervene and get the apes off of her husband. The attack ended when the two chimpanzees were shot and killed by a relative of the sanctuary's owner. The couple had been visiting Mo to celebrate his birthday, and they'd taken a cake. When the two male chimps, Buddy, who was 16, and Ollie, 13, escaped and attacked them, Mo himself was not involved in the attack whatsoever. He was, I think, and I'm just guessing, but I think he was like Sarah, just sitting in his cage, nomming down on his birthday cake. But there was also two female chimpanzees. I keep saying chimpanzees
every time.
For God's sake. Two female chimpanzees that were also housed in the same cage. They also got out and fled the sanctuary during the chaos. They weren't in on the attack. They just thought, doors open, let's go. So they just legged it, but they were found shortly after. I think about 4 hours they were looking for them, and they found the two female chimps, and the people from the sanctuary tranquilized them and brought them safely back to the sanctuary. So they weren't hurt or killed or anything. So that was good. Authorities, along with the sheriff's department, then launched a massive investigation as to how these like fully grown adult chimps were able to escape. The exact cause of the attack remains unclear. Mr. Davis had cared for Mo for over 30 years and surrendered him to the sanctuary in 1999. But the reason that he took Mo to the sanctuary was because there was a couple of incidents that happened with Mo when he reached like maturity. And this was that apparently the chimp had injured a police officer, and another incident where he had actually bitten a woman's finger off who had poked her finger through into the cage.
Gosh.
And he bit her finger off. Experts say that the attack might have been triggered by jealousy from Mo's neighbor chimps. Maybe they saw and, looked over and saw him being given a birthday cake, and these people going, oh, you're such a good boy, we love you, blah blah blah, happy birthday and all this. And they thought, no mate, I'm going to get out and I'm going to take him down for not bringing me a cake.
Yeah, they're so clever.
They are really
they're so
clever.
much more intelligent than I think we give them credit for.
Yeah, which is what makes it even more terrifying to me.
Yeah, I recently read a story actually, just going off topic for a minute, about Robin Williams, and he was brought in to this I think it was a chimpanzee. Her friend, this chimpanzee's friend, had died, and she was in such grieving, such mourning, that she'd become incredibly like depressed and melancholy. And she was so smart they'd taught her sign language, so she could communicate fully in sign language.
Jeez.
So they brought Robin Williams in to try and cheer her up, and they ended up having like a great conversation and laughing and joking, and
so
they're
it's
just
cute.
so smart.
It's cute, but it is terrifying to me that they can
they have the cognitive ability that I think that we don't understand.
And it's their eyes as well. It is a little bit, for me, it's like looking into the eyes of a serial killer, because it's like they've got the ability and possibly the want to kill you.
Yeah,
they're not bothered by our laws and things like that. They're just animalistic.
Yeah,
and I think that's terrifying, because you don't know if they're sitting thinking, if I took a run up, I could grab onto that, I could leap over, and then I would be on the same side of the fence as them.
And I can rip his face right off.
And then I can tear his face completely off. And it's like, terrifying. But, experts were saying that jealousy is or can be a motive for chimpanzees. And circumstances play significant role of aggressive behavior with chimps. So, it could have just been, they were in the wrong place at the wrong time, doing the wrong things, unbeknownst to them. But it essentially it got them attacked. The sanctuary issued a statement saying that chimpanzees, despite their varying personalities, should not be kept as pets due to their unpredictable nature and their extreme strength. Which their strength and everything I'll go on a bit more about later. But now I'm going to tell you the story of Andrew Oberle or Oberle. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but the following story of Andrew's is from his own words. So I take no credit for like the following story or how it's written. This is exactly what he said when he did a seminar. So he said, ever since I was 8 years old, I knew what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I wanted to work with my most favorite animal in the world, chimpanzees. In second grade, my teacher, Mrs. Rosso, she taught us about Dr. Jane Goodall and how she was living in Africa with chimpanzees and teaching the world how amazing these animals were. I loved how human-like they looked and the way they moved. I loved the noises that they made. I loved the way they played with each other, moving through the trees with little effort. I loved how smart they were and how they would make their own tools to fish for termites. I went home that afternoon and I told my mum, that's what I want to do when I grow up. So growing up, I spent as much time in zoos as I possibly could, and I eventually wound up as a graduate student in anthropology. Then in 2012, in June, I travelled to South Africa to a chimp sanctuary to fulfill my lifelong dream of conducting my very own original master's thesis research with my favourite animals. So one afternoon, I was out there giving a tour, stopped at an all-adult enclosure to tell the guests about the resident chimps in that group. And something enraged the two males that were in that group. They decided to escape their enclosure and teach me a deadly lesson. Now, I don't know why they did it. Maybe they saw me as a threat, invading their territory, trying to steal their girlfriends. Maybe they just wanted to show all the humans that were there with us who the real boss was. Who knows? Chimps are chimps. Full-grown adult male chimps are especially dangerous, especially smart, and could be very, very aggressive, deadly aggressive. Now, what made it even worse for me was that I knew these chimps. I cared about them, and that's why I was actually there at the sanctuary, because I wanted to do everything I could to make sure that these chimps had the best lives they possibly could. So, as they were holding me down, biting at me, tearing my flesh, all I could scream and yell was, "Nikki, Amadeus, stop it. Please don't." But none of that worked. They didn't care, and they didn't ever stop. It felt like an eternity. If I close my eyes, I can still actually feel Nikki's hot breath on my face right before he bit off my nose. I can see Amadeus's big white eyes and his big white teeth as he bit one of my fingers off, one by one, almost like this little piggy went to market fashion. When my pleas didn't work, I tried fighting back, but I didn't have any luck. They nearly killed me. When the doctors finally got hold of my mum, they told her to get to South Africa as soon as she possibly could, but don't have her hopes up. Can you imagine how tough that 20-hour flight must have been for her? So I was rescued from the scene. I was rushed to a small emergency med clinic, and I nearly bled out. The doctors had to use 25 units of blood just to keep me going while they addressed my wounds. I lost most of my scalp, both my ears, most of my fingers, my nose lost completely. I had a nasty gash on the side of my face, a collapsed lung, and I went in and out of septic shock several times. Both of my wrists were torn up, my elbow, my back end, my legs. I lost over half my right foot, all of my toes on my left foot. The doctor did an emergency tracheotomy, and they put me on a ventilator into an induced coma. I woke up about 2.5 weeks later in that hospital in South Africa with my mum and dad kind of looking down over me and smiling. I had no idea where I was, so I tried to ask, but I couldn't get any words out. When I tried to talk, I felt funny, and I felt something weird in my neck. So I tried to reach up to feel what it was, but I couldn't lift my arms. I heard other voices around me outside of my mum and dad, so I wanted to see who it was, but I couldn't even lift and turn my head to take a look. I remember my mum telling me, "You're in a hospital in Johannesburg. Do you remember what happened to you?" I wanted to say yes, but I couldn't spit out those words. All I could do was kind of nod. When I nodded, I took the chance to look down, and all I could see was a mangled, bloody, bandaged body from the feet up. That's when I got really scared. I started getting really anxious and starting to realize how bad things actually were for me. And then I started feeling all the pain throughout every inch of my body, and I started feeling helpless, more helpless than I've ever felt in my life. Then that question that a lot of us have, especially those who have hard moments, why me? Why me? That was just going through my head over and over. Over the next few days, I started getting visited by this nice old South African man named Yappy or Yapai. Yappy was the hospital's counsellor. Now, I don't really remember the substance of our conversations. I was just brought out of an induced coma and on a lot of every kind of drug you can imagine. But I do remember the feeling that I would have when Yappy would leave. He'd leave for the day and I would start to think about things, what had happened to me, where I was, what might happen to me. But the one kind of reoccurring thought that really kept creeping out after those visits with Yappy was, wow, I'm alive. I should not be here today, but I am here. So maybe I do have a little bit of control. Maybe I'm not completely helpless. Now, around that same time, my mum started reading me notes and cards that she had hung round near the end of my bed that people had sent. They were cards from people back home that I've known and loved my entire life. There were cards from strangers from all over the world. And they all had the kind of same message. Andrew, I'm praying for you. I'm thinking about you. If anybody can get through this, you can. That's when something really sparked inside me and I stopped feeling sorry for myself, even in the condition I was at that point. I knew that I couldn't let my families down and I couldn't let my friends down. I couldn't let all these amazing strangers who went out of their way to do something for me, I couldn't let them down. And most of all, the one person that I couldn't let down the most was my beautiful dog, Angie, who was waiting for me back home. She needed me. So I was in the hospital over there in South Africa for another 5 weeks. I experienced daily agonizing dressing changes that could last for up to 4 hours. While they were pumping me full of fentanyl during those dressing changes, I had my mum cover my face with a towel, put on my YouTube playlist so that I could find some escape from the pain of having to look down at my destroyed, damaged body that was terrifyingly gross. There were a lot of things that was really going on at that point that were trying to keep me down. But I remembered those notes and I remembered that Yappy had said, just keep going. And that's how he made me feel. I knew I had to keep fighting back. So that's what I did. I even took the one therapy challenge that they put in front of me at the hospital. If I could sit on the edge of my bed for just 2 minutes and hold myself in that position after they put me there, it meant that I could get on a wheelchair, get on an aeroplane and get home to see my beloved Angie. Now, trying to sit on the edge of your bed when your back end has been completely torn apart by a razor sharp chimpanzee teeth, let me tell you. So a lot of the questions I get are, aren't chimps cute and cuddly? Now, the ones you see on TV, yes, they are. But when adolescence kicks in, for the males especially, they become these 4 to 5 foot tall, 200-pound juggernauts with razor-sharp canines and the strength of more than 5 men. And boy, did they do a number on me. But sitting on the edge of the bed with the bandages and everything going on back there, it was tough, every session. But I fought through it because I wanted to go home. I wanted to get home to Angie. Then one day it happened. I finally sat up and held myself there for 2 or 3 minutes. My reward, just a couple of days later, they put me on a stretcher, wheeled me out of the hospital into an ambulance, and then we were off to the airport and I was on my way home to see Angie. And then he talks about, some of the good that he's doing with his life. He met a Dr. Bruce Kramer, who was chief of plastic and reconstructive surgery at SLU, which is St. Louis University. And he said, so my wrists were destroyed. I couldn't move them from much of a sort of straight on point. So Dr. Kramer said that he could fix it. He cut a flap. This is Andrew. He said he cut a flap in my belly and sutured the flap to my arm for 3 weeks where it was stuck like that. After we cut the flap away, he let it heal up. He went in, he rearranged some tendons, and he said now he can extend his wrists and move them around, and he can even do a kind of thumbs up, which he said was like a massive jump forward for him. He's had so much reconstructive surgery. One of the things that I wanted to include, because I just think it's incredible, it's so clever. He said Dr. Kramer used this product called Matrastem, which is patients like Andrew. He said we like to call it magic fairy dust. What Matrastem is just a powder, but it's derived from a pig's bladder, and it looks a lot like Parmesan cheese, but it is an amazingly incredible thing. What it really is you would pack this magic fairy dust, Matrastem, you would pack it into a wound, and it acts as scaffolding for your body to kind of build over. But it tells your body exactly what kind of cell needs to go in that very specific location. So specific that a good buddy and fellow patient of Andrew's actually grew back an old thumbprint after he'd actually chopped the end of his finger off.
Oh my goodness.
It's so specific, this stuff. It literally tells everything specifically where to be so that it can actually regrow a fingerprint, which I think is incredible. Instead of having like what you normally you would have is like just scar
tissue.
Yeah. So Andrew says, so I was growing back normal tissue on my head that actually had hair follicles and sweat glands instead of just having
scar tissue.
Scarred tissue all over his head. The gash that he's got on his face is getting smaller and smaller, more filled out, less noticeable. Andrew said, I wasn't experiencing any phantom pains or nerve pains in his amputation sites because the Matrastem was actually helping his body grow nerves back instead of letting all the old ones bunch together in the scar tissue that would then cause this phantom limb or, all this pain.
The pain.
The level of healing that he said that I experienced, it just got better and better. It allowed him to have state-of-the-art prosthetic devices on his hands and his feet because he didn't have either of his hands or either of his feet. He got back confidence, and he said, so with that confidence and my new prosthetics, I went to the gym every day, got stronger and stronger, and now I'm at the stage where I'm running 5Ks with Angie, and he can do unassisted pull-ups.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's mad. He got, all the treatment and motivation that he needed. But he said at the end, he says that, he goes on to a lot more about his recovery and things, but he basically said at the end, so why me? Which is the question that he kept asking himself. And he said, after having all that and going through that and learning so much from it, why me? He said, I think I have that answer. And that's the end of his, well, maybe the beginning of his story. But I mean, he just got ripped apart, absolutely ripped apart. But this next story is the complete reason why I'm so scared of apes. And I'll tell you, it actually came from when I first heard about it. It was actually an episode on I Survived.
Oh, right, yeah.
Oh,
I love that.
It's so good, isn't it? That. I know. We'll have a look at it because they tell it. Obviously, I've
listened to every episode, so
you'll know it then. Yeah. But this is the story of Bruno. So in the heart of Sierra Leone, which is in Africa, is the sanctuary of the Takugama chimpanzee sanctuary. And this is where there was a chimpanzee called Bruno, and he became a legend, but not for his charm or his intelligence, although he had both in spades, but for the chaos that unleashed on April in 2006. And the parts of this are brutal and they are disgusting. But so I'll tell you a bit about Bruno. So Bruno's life began in tragedy, a story far too common for chimpanzees in West Africa. Likely orphaned by poachers and taken from the wild, Bruno was rescued as an infant and brought to the sanctuary. The sanctuary is nestled in the hills, in a forest in hills near Freetown. It was a haven for chimpanzees just like Bruno, victims of the illegal pet trade and bushmeat industry. Here, Bruno grew into a striking alpha male, known for his intelligence, charisma, and formidable presence. Visitors and staff alike were captivated by him. He was a natural leader amongst his peers, commanding respect with his size and demeanor. So I should tell you, Bruno was far bigger, like massively bigger. He was over twice the size of any of the other apes. When he stood, when he completely stood up, he was around 7 foot tall.
Jeez.
So he was an absolute,
and it's just pure muscle,
beast,
isn't it?
Absolutely pure muscle. He was massively muscular, very, very broad, big built, like the Arnold Schwarzenegger of apes. Like he was massive.
Yeah.
Despite the years of care and rehabilitation, he retained a wild streak, a reflection of his untamed origins, maybe. His strength and cunning were both source of admiration and also as a reminder of the unpredictable nature of his species. On April 23rd, 2006, the day started like any other day normally did at the sanctuary. The staff went about their routine, unaware that Bruno and his group of 30, you heard that right, 30 chimpanzee mates were plotting something unprecedented. By the day's end, the sanctuary would be thrust into international spotlight for all the wrong reasons. The exact details of how the chimps escaped still to this day remains unclear, which is comforting. Some believe that Bruno, with his intelligence and physical strength, orchestrated the breakout by manipulating or forcing open the gate of their enclosure. Once the barrier was breached, the chimps spilled out into the surrounding forest. A group of powerful, intelligent primates suddenly untethered from the sanctuary's safety. The news of the escape spread quickly and a search party was formed. Among the sanctuary staff, among this team were sanctuary staff, volunteers, and a little local taxi driver who had been called in to help. So he came along with his taxi and he was driving round certain parts of outside the sanctuary. So they searched surrounding forests. It was beautiful, but it was a very, very dense forest and it was teeming with wildlife, making the search both urgent and extremely dangerous. So in this particular group that we're going to talk about were 2 Americans and 2 African guys. I did get into names and things, but it gets really confusing because you don't know who's who. And they were driving along in this little taxi driver's car, and they came across the group of chimps, and the chimps looked pissed. They looked mad angry. And then they could clearly see Bruno looming over all of the other apes. And he saw them and he got down with his knuckles onto the ground and he started running at the car at speed. He reached the car very quickly. He jumped on top of it and begins pounding his fists into the top of the car, smashing great big dents in it, shaking the whole car. And then he jumps off the car and with his fists, he punched out one of the windows and grabbed hold of one of the African guy's arms.
Jeez.
And this was, his name was Melvin. So Melvin like freaks out. He's trying to like pull his arm back in. Bruno's got hold of his arm. He's trying to pull Melvin completely out of the cab. The other guys are all grabbing onto Melvin and trying to keep him in the car. So Bruno at this point, he's got hold of this Melvin's hand and arm. He bites down on Melvin's hand and he bites from, your point finger.
Mm-hmm.
So he bit from his point finger all the way off like that. So all Melvin had was his thumb and his pointy finger, his index finger.
Oh, gosh.
And that was it. All of the whole side of this hand, Bruno bit completely off. And the group then realised that they're pretty much surrounded by Bruno and 30 other great big muscly chimps. So they're like, right, we need to get out of here. We need to get out of here. The gates to the sanctuary were closed. So the taxi driver thinks, oh, stuff it. I'm just going to smash through the gates. Like we're going to die.
Mm-hmm.
So he puts his foot on the accelerator and they accelerate towards the gate and they hit the gate and the gates stay closed and firm and it completely disables the car.
Oh, no.
Now they're stuck. Melvin's like pissing out blood from his hand, screaming and shouting. The chimps are all heading to the car and they're like, Jesus Christ, we need to get out. So the taxi driver gets out the car and he's like, save yourselves, and goes running off into the forest because he's like, we're a sitting target. We're just going to like get ripped to pieces. So he runs in there. Gary, who's one of the Americans that was sitting in the back of the car, he gets like, when they hit the gates, he gets knocked out cold. So he's unconscious in the back of the car. The other two guys get out, this is including Melvin. So they get out and they think, right, the driver's gone. Gary's unconscious. We need to leg it. So they get out and they start running. Melvin's running and running as fast as he can, holding his like half a hand that's dripping blood everywhere. And Bruno has Melvin in his sights. So he's after him. And within seconds of Melvin getting out of the car, Bruno's on him and he is like ripping him apart. Bruno sinks his teeth into Melvin's right foot and bites it completely off. He's pounding his fists on Melvin's face, tearing at his body, pulling chunks off of him. Meanwhile, Gary, that's been unconscious in the car, regains consciousness, looks out, sees Bruno ripping Melvin apart and thinks, I've got to save him. I mean, he's a decent guy, Gary. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm not sure I'd be able to do that. I think I'd be like, I'm out.
Well,
sorry.
even when you said the first story about the wife sustained injuries to her hands because she was trying to save her husband, I was thinking, oh, she's brave.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's just,
I wouldn't put my hand in there.
The idea of it is just terrifying to me.
That's the fight or flight, isn't it? Your adrenaline takes over and you don't think you act.
Yeah.
That would not be me.
Obviously, that's what it was for Gary. Gary was a fight kind of guy. So he runs over to Melvin, and on the way over to Melvin, Gary grabs a tree branch and he starts smashing it into Bruno, really like, and Bruno's like batting him off and like tearing another bit off of Melvin. And at one point, Gary manages to get the end of the branch and he jams it into Bruno's neck, which makes Bruno stop. And Bruno kind of steps, like falls back and like puts his hand up to his neck and then disappears off into the forest. And Gary's like, oh my God, thank God for that. The other guys like see this or something, and they see that Gary's just stabbed Bruno in the neck and Bruno's now disappeared off into the forest. So they come back to like Melvin's aid and they pick him up. And Gary and this other guy, they pick him up and they get Melvin into the car. They try to get the car started. All of the other apes have kind of disappeared by this point. Like they've kind of gone with Bruno and disappeared into the forest. So they're like, okay. They do what they can with the car. They manage to get the car started and they just take off in this car that's like smashed to pieces. And they go to the hospital to take Melvin. They head straight to the hospital. The hospital staff and the doctors managed to save Melvin's life. And he did actually recover, but he was in critical condition for like a long, long time. But a few days later, the search was still going on for Bruno and his fellow monkey army. But what about the driver? I hear you ask. What happened to the driver?
What happened to the driver?
I'm glad you asked that, Sarah, because I'll tell you. So apparently this is what they assume had happened.
Oh no.
I know. So he makes a run from the car. He's like, save yourself. And he runs
Every
off into
man's
the
an
forest.
island.
Exactly. And when he ran into the forest, meanwhile, you've got to bear in mind that Bruno is attacking Melvin. But all the other 30 apes are in the forest.
Mm-hmm.
And they surround this little taxi driver. So he runs in and he suddenly thinks, oh, I've just run into a
monkey lair.
Yeah, a monkey lair, and they're all like staring at him. They instantly began a massive assault on him. And this is horrible. So this is quite descriptive. So you can skip ahead a little bit if you don't want to hear it. But this is what they did to him. They tore off his hands. They tore off his feet. They ripped his lower jaw completely off. They tore open his torso and pulled everything out. None of his organs were ever found. They destroyed his genitals. It was all just ripped off. When the other guys that were in the car, when they saw him or his remains on a stretcher being carried out of the forest, they said that his body just looked like a pile of mince. He was completely unrecognizable as a human. The attack sent shockwaves through the community and drew international attention to Takagama. In the days that followed, a concerted effort was made to recapture the escaped chimpanzees. Teams of sanctuary staff, local authorities, wildlife experts combed the forest using food and other lures to coax the chimps back. Most of the escapees were eventually found and returned to the sanctuary, but Bruno, the mastermind of the escape, vanished. Despite extensive searches, no trace of him has ever been found. His disappearance remains a mystery to this day, fueling speculation and intrigue. Some believe that he may have succumbed to the challenges of surviving in the wild after being in captivity pretty much his whole life. Others think he might have integrated with wild chimpanzees. And some people say that he may have succumbed to the injury in his neck when he was stabbed by Gary. But most people like to think that he's living out the rest of his days as a truly free monkey. And that's all we know. That is the end.
what's so terrifying about that is that in all of those cases, they were held in a presumably locked,
Yeah.
secure area, and then
Yeah.
they all went, I don't fancy this anymore.
Yeah, I've had enough
I'll
now.
see you later. I know a
Yeah,
way out.
exactly. And that's what's terrifying. And it's you we still don't know how any of them actually got out.
No.
Like, how
It's
calculated was it? Do you know
it,
what I
it
mean?
it would have been it's the same as when, humans get locked up in prison and they try and devise an escape plan,
Yeah.
and they figure out how best to escape, like Alcatraz and things. There, it would
Yeah.
have been a very calculated means of escape. They
I
just
mean,
went, I'm only being held captive here because I can't bother to escape. When I do be bothered to escape, you better watch out.
yeah. But I mean, is this not a lesson that we should stop putting animals in cages?
Oh yeah, but that'll never happen, will it? But I'm surprised that you didn't
It should.
mention this. There's a really, really famous case of a chimpanzee attack, and it's the chimpanzee Travis. You don't know of Travis? That
Is
one's
that, is
really
that the one with
famous.
the woman where
Yeah,
she goes and visits him? And
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So
I have seen
Travis,
that.
this happened in 2009, and a lady named Sandra, she had Travis for years, and he lived in a house,
Yeah.
and he was a very well rounded chimp. She'd had him since he was a baby chimp,
Hmm.
and he was now like mature.
Yeah.
And Sandra's friend came round to visit, and he just flipped out and just started attacking her, and he ripped
Yeah.
her face off and all sorts. And Sandra was there, and she tried everything she could to get Travis off of her friend, and she stabbed him in the back. I
Hmm.
think she might have shot him. Nothing stopped the attack. And when
It's
he eventually,
terrifying.
he was so calculated that he'd stolen Sandra's car keys and then escaped into the woods with them.
That's crazy, isn't it? The
Yeah,
fact that he knows that,
that
that's the thing
that's
to
what she
do. Like,
uses to
yeah.
get away. Yeah, yeah, and it was crazy.
Yeah. No, there's certainly a lot more. Originally, I was just going to do the story about Bruno.
Yeah,
But then after finding like more and more of them, I thought, you know what? There's a lot.
there is a lot. There is
There's a
absolutely a
lot.
lot.
Maybe we'll have to do Mad Monkeys Part 2.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Um,
that is why I'm scared of monkeys, because I just think they're like the animalistic part of
a serial
humans.
killer.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Yeah,
It's like if you do something that they don't like or they see as a threat, you're not going to know what it is.
yeah.
And there was a story of a woman who goes to the zoo, and she went to the zoo every day to see this chimpanzee, and she used to smile at him. And to chimps, that's a sign of aggression, because she's showing her teeth.
Oh, yeah. I
And
guess
when
that
you
makes
show your
sense.
teeth to them, they see it as a sign of aggression. So
Yeah,
she thought she was going there. She sponsored him. She, like, donated money towards his care. And she thought, smiling at him every day and telling him that she loved him and he's a good boy and all this
he's
was
just sitting
the
there
thing.
thinking, I
He's
can't wait to rip your face off.
Yeah, it was. And he was literally sitting behind this glass thinking, this woman comes here every day just to antagonize me.
Threatening me. Yeah,
Yeah. And she threatens me every day. You wait till I get out. And then he did get out, and he like tore her face off.
yeah, yeah. You don't know what they're thinking, do you? And
You just
it's
don't
and
know.
then the strength of them is ridiculous. Have you ever seen a
Unbelievable.
hairless chimp?
Yes. Oh my God,
The
it's terrifying.
muscle on them is
Hideous.
honestly just horrendous. They are, considering they don't go to the gym, and they are buff.
They really are. They really,
Yeah.
really are
Yeah,
terrifying.
and
I know.
you're not going to stop that attack. They will stop when they want to stop. You're not going to
No,
stop that.
and
That's
unless you had some sort of semi-automatic weapon ready
yeah.
to go, um, yeah,
But even
you're not
that's going to
stopping
take
them.
a few
Yeah,
rounds.
yeah, you'd need to get in there quick.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Oh gosh. Well, I would never visit the zoo again. So thank you for that.
no, you're welcome. You're
Yeah.
welcome. Yeah. let's stop caging up all these animals until they get so fuming that they tear us all apart.
Absolutely. Well, next week's episode is not an animal related episode, you'll be pleased to hear.
We're coming off that now.
Yeah, he's not. And I do have a very, very big story in the pipeline. So it's not next week. The following week will be your story, and hopefully it will be the following week. So I've got about 3 weeks in which to really get it done. It's a massive story. So I'm really looking forward to that one.
Nice. Well, I think I've got an idea of what my next story is going to be. So
great.
Yeah.
All right, Pete.
Forward.
Lovely.
Very much. Thank you very much.
See you. I hope you feel better, Kate.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sure I will. I'll go and have some whiskey. I mean medication.
Oops.
Oopsie.
Farewell.
Right. See you all later.
Bye.
Bye.
If you have enjoyed listening to our episodes, make sure you rate us and leave us a review on whatever platform you are listening.
We absolutely love hearing from you guys. So you can also help support our show by donating to our Buy Me a Coffee link. We will make sure that you get a massive shout out and a big thank you in our next week's episode.
You can also follow us on social media at Perplexed Podcasts. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and if you want to see more videos and blooper reels, subscribe to our TikTok and YouTube channels.
You can also email us your stories at perplexedpodcasts@gmail.com.
And you can find all the relevant links in the episode descriptions. Thanks for listening. Bye.